To say that the current health crisis has had an impact on cruising would be a huge understatement. While the entire industry suspending operations in the US, and for some cruise lines the entire world, is a historic move, it was actually just one of the many steps the cruise lines have taken. In the months before, the cruise industry canceled trips from Asia, stepped up sanitation efforts, restricted boarding to those in impacted countries, and more. Even so, the spread around the world of the coronavirus has hit the entire industry and a number of cruise ships extremely hard. At this point, there's nothing for cruise fans to do but wait. No matter when ships do get sailing again, one thing is for sure, it won't just be back to cruising as normal. The impact of the coronavirus is bound to be felt for years to come in both ways large and small. Here's some ways we could see changes in cruising after this crisis subsides. Number 1, more sanitation on cruise ships. So during the outbreak, cruise lines across the world stepped up their sanitation routines on ships to help fight against any spread on board. So this included cleaning and disinfecting public areas and frequent touch points like handrails. It also meant that the staff often handled food and buffets instead of passengers, and additional hand sanitizer stations were placed all throughout ships. Don't expect these moves to go away once there is a return to sailing. The risk of another outbreak is too big to leave anything to chance, while the additional cost of these measures is relatively low. It could also help put passengers at ease if they are still worried about their health. Number 2, expect high alert for potential cases of coronavirus. If you have a fever, if you're feeling unwell, if you show any potential signs of illness that's going around, don't be surprised if you get a visit from the ship's doctor or if you were screened even before boarding. Cruise lines are likely to be on high alert for any potential cases once sailing resumes, and that goes for any other sort of illness, not just coronavirus. This could mean more instances of people being denied boarding if they're thought to be a health threat, and more in-room quarantines if someone does happen to get sick on the ship. Number 3, bigger discounts to set sail. One positive that might come from this entire ordeal is that it's likely you'll see bigger discounts on cruises in the months ahead. As cruise lines work to set sail again, part of its efforts are going to be convincing people that cruising is safe. And for those on a budget, price could be a big draw to get them off the fence if they're not sure. Even before the suspension of cruising, we were seeing some price drops as the crisis spread and some ships came under quarantine. While most drops seem to be relatively modest, we're talking $50 to $100 per person, future prices could be much lower. This could especially be the case right as cruises start sailing again, and the past few months are still fresh in people's memories. On the flip side to possible lower cruise prices, one thing you might see are more or higher costs once you're on the ship. Before the outbreak, cruise lines made about 25 to 30% of their revenue from onboard spending. Onboard spending is a collective term that includes everything from gambling to drinks to specialty restaurants, excursions, onboard shopping, and more. It's a major source of cruise line revenue. For years, the prices for items on board have seemingly creeped up, including more specialty restaurants and charges for more activities on ships. With a low headline price to get passengers booking, don't be surprised if cruise lines try to make up the lower revenue by charging more for things during the sailing. Another change you might see are more restrictions from ports of call. This crisis has impacted the world, and that includes not just the US and not just cruise ships. We're talking everywhere. Ports of call have the task of balancing those tourism dollars that come from cruising with letting cruise ships dock with the potential health risks. During the outbreak, we saw some ports of call turn away ships that had sick passengers, even if they weren't confirmed to be carrying coronavirus. As cruise lines begin operating again, ports are sure to welcome them with open arms, but also with lots of caution. It wouldn't be surprising to see ports continue to turn ships away now and then if passengers on board have symptoms of serious illness. They could also have their own health checks for debarking passengers. Another change you might find are less crowded ships, at least in the first few months as cruises start back sailing. So normally cruise ships sail above capacity. The average capacity for lines was around 105 to 108% recent years. That means on average, each cabin has at least 2 people in it, and some have 3 or more. we'd expect those numbers to be lower in the months ahead as the industry rebounds. That means your ship might not seem quite as crowded. For passengers, that can actually be a good thing. Reservations at specialty restaurants might be easier to get, and other eateries like the buffet are going to be less hectic. As well, that chair by the pool might be a little bit easier to get on those days at sea. Number 7 is one that's going to be with us for a while, and that's that you should expect more front page stories about outbreaks on cruise ships. Expect everyone from passengers to the public to the media to be tuned into any outbreaks that happen on cruise ships anytime soon. Outbreaks of stomach illnesses have been in the headlines for years on ships. In fact, the CDC keeps a list of outbreaks, including several that have actually occurred during this coronavirus crisis. It's almost certain that even after things begin to return to normal, these stories of outbreaks are going to get outsized coverage compared to what they did before. The interest in this sort of news figures to be at an all-time high, even if the outbreak isn't coronavirus. Number 8, it seems almost certain that you're going to see fewer refurbishments of existing ships. Now, all the major cruise lines have been on a run of refurbing their cruise ships in recent years. It's really been a necessity to keep up with the competition and even the cruise line's own fleet of newer ships. However, with the financial impact that the crisis has had on the industry, it's likely that cruise lines will need to scale back these plans for years to come in order to strengthen their balance sheets. While some refurbishments will continue, expect them to be fewer in number or have smaller updates done. This will help the cruise lines to save money and better weather the storm that they have faced already. The final potential change in the cruise industry on our list is that fewer new ships may be built in the future. Today, a modern cruise ship can easily cost $1 billion or more to build. That's money that the cruise lines could use to otherwise strengthen their balance sheets. Now, cruise ships already under construction are likely to continue being built. With so much money already invested, the cruise lines and their lenders would prefer to see them finished and earning money. Don't be surprised, however, if you see ships that are planned in the future and haven't yet started construction be scuttled for the time being. With the significant cost of ships, it's an easy way for the cruise line to save some cash right now. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to put them below. As well, you can always visit us for more at Cruzely.com.